please.
All right, let me get back to that page really quick. Sorry. Sorry, it's like not wanting to open for some reason. I just had it open because I shared it with you, Jasmine. Committees. Sorry. 1 second. Yeah, it will not open for me for some reason. Let me just go find it in the email that I just sent you. Okay. So we will start with roll call. If it'll open. All right. Crow Crosswhite. Okay. Adrian De La Rosa. Okay. Olivia Dudo.
Here.
Elizabeth Johnson.
I'm here.
Melissa Camania. Mo Mitchell.
Hello.
Jody Saffert.
Here.
Delaney Skuse. I think Delaney is here. I think Delaney is our newest member of the HREC. The council appointed her last week. I believe Juan is handling moving her over, so I will return to that name after I finish the rest. Shireen Solomon.
Here.
Hoon Tran.
Here.
Kay Vincent.
Here.
And Jasmine Wilder.
Present.
Thanks, folks. Okay, Jasmine, I will turn it over to you. And then I'm happy to participate in the first portion of the land acknowledgement with what we discussed earlier.
Sorry. Yeah, so that sounds good. So without further ado, we call the meeting of the Human Rights and Equity Commission of the City of Bend, the November 22nd meeting to order. And then right now we're going to do a little bit of a different, we're still gonna have land acknowledgement, but we're gonna have a few more things here. And I'm gonna hand it right back over to Anna to talk about some of the additions that we have today.
So I apologize if I have some coughing that comes up. I'm getting over something. This week has brought up a number of conversations. Well, actually just this month in general, I think around holidays and what they mean for different communities. And so we thought it'd be good to raise that conversation, and Crow shared with me some written words, poetry that they wrote, and I really, they wanted to have that read tonight. And so I would like to take some time and try to do honor for this spoken word. So I'll go ahead and read what Crow has written. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to acknowledge the land. Here we stand on remnants of the ever-evolving plan. Kill the Indian, save the man. Eras named, removal, assimilation, reorganization, extermination. Now, self-determined to demand reparations and honest plans. They will use language to sugarcoat sin, pull the wool over eyes and smallpox blankets over skin. Stay seated when they mean coerced and threatened. And if genocide is never mentioned, what is the intention? Words without action are merely pretension. I really appreciate Crow sharing that with me and allowing me to attempt to do justice for that. Poetry is really important, and I think it's like really a good outlet for us to express our feelings. And so I really appreciated that, and appreciate them for allowing me to share that with the group. I also, before we do kind of the official land acknowledgement, wanted to take some time to just also acknowledge what Thanksgiving means and can mean for different people. I think, as folks prepare for this holiday or what they consider for their family and themselves as a holiday, that preparation can look really different for other communities. Some folks aren't preparing for a meal with their family. They're preparing to just merely survive the day, and are often placed as invisible in these kind of holidays as well. And so I just wanted to elevate that. I've been participating in a lot of conversations recently this month. First of all, it's Native American Heritage Month. So I just want to say happy Native American Heritage Month as well. And really just share that I think, or create space to decenter whiteness and just really elevate the idea that holidays mean different things for folks. I can't speak for all Indian people. I can only speak for myself and my family and what I grew up with. And we celebrate this day very differently every single year. So this year I went to visit my brothers. We cut our hair together, and that's like an act of physical mourning. It's a physical representation of mourning. And it was really for the loss of our loved ones. And we cleaned up some burial sites and planted a chokecherry tree. And this weekend is actually also my brother's birthday. It falls right after Thanksgiving. And so we're going to celebrate that together home on the reservation. We all go out and clean up the burial sites of my mother and our loved ones. We're going to plant another chokecherry tree in honor of my mother. And we make elk stew together, and we go around and everybody can show up and eat. And that's just a way that we celebrate. I know Indigenous folks that celebrate just kind of another day. It's another day that they're pushing through. They're continuing work as usual. And there's no conversation around it. And then I also know folks that really struggle on that day, because it is a day that has a meaning of genocide, of attempted erasure of Indigenous people. And there's a lot of history there. And so they sit with a lot of pain and trauma behind that. And so I just wanted to invite the group to consider that, to hold that, to decenter that whiteness, and just really acknowledge and to stand kind of in solidarity in that. And those actions can look differently. You can engage in your own learning and understanding. You can reach out to your Indigenous friends and loved ones in community to see how they're doing. You can share a meal. I think it's different there's no perfect way to be Indigenous on that day. Everybody does it differently. And so I just wanted to kind of center that in this conversation. And I won't take up a ton more time, but I just wanted to say, I hope you all are encouraged to step out of your comfort zone, or to encourage somebody else to step out of their comfort zone, to really talk about this, to center this. And so I appreciate you all making space for that. We are also going to do a land acknowledgement tonight, and Jasmine has offered to read that. And I really appreciate not making the Indigenous person in the room read that. So thank you, Jasmine, for that. And so in closing, I'll just say, Ashendaga kwa biachikudazinboipi, which means thank you for me. So Jasmine, I'll turn it over to you to do the official land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Anna, so much. Okay, so this is my first attempt. Here we go. We would like to acknowledge that the beautiful land known as Bend, Oregon, north to the Columbia River, is the original homelands of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. The Confederated Tribes ceded this land in the Treaty of 1855 while retaining regular and customary hunting, fishing, and gathering rights. The Wanalama, Wasco, and Northern Paiute people inhabited this area in certain seasonal times that clearly established their presence. It is also important to note that the Klamath Trail ran north through this region to the Great Celilo Falls trading grounds, to the Great Celilo Falls trading grounds. This trade route expanded the impact of commerce between tribal nations. We acknowledge and thank the original stewards of this land. It is our hope that guests continue to honor and care for this land. All right, excellent. And I want to thank you for taking the time to share with us and to give us that viewpoint into your life and into your family's life. I really appreciate that. Also, I'm going to transition now. We had on November 20th, which was this last Saturday, Trans Day of Remembrance. I'm super sorry. I have a coughing baby in the background. Happy but coughing. Okay, so Trans Day of Remembrance, and it's going to be really important. I want to share that I was able to attend the vigil that was held by Transcend Central Oregon, which is Kay Vincent's organization. It was really incredible, the presence that was there, the solidarity, and even that moment of pause for grief to hang in the air. Of the 47 plus names that we know of, each of them were said out loud, and each of them had a candle lit with the participation of the group. After that, there was a time for people to share, and I found each of those incidences to be incredibly impactful. Kay also opened with a statement, which they are going to share now, which honestly, you know, I was emotional just sitting with the impact of the 47 plus lives. More importantly, also the entire experience of being trans in America specifically, and the weightiness of that burden. And so I was happy to stand there. I was happy to be a part, to participate. I was honored, in fact. And so I just want to make sure we're highlighting that. And then I'm going to transition this over to Kay to share their words with us again.
Cool. Yeah, bear with me. This was hard to read at the vigil, and I had Jasmine there as like my touch person to tell me to slow down. And I wrote this specifically for that night. So if things don't translate because it's not Saturday, bear with me. Thank you all for showing up for the trans community this evening. This year has been the deadliest year for trans folks. We know 47 individuals have been murdered due to transphobic hate and violence this year alone in the United States, and 375 globally. We know there are so many other individuals who have yet to be reported who have also lost their lives. Transgender Day of Remembrance was founded by transgender advocate Gwendolyn Ann Smith in 1999 as a vigil to honor her memory of Rita Hester, a transgender woman who was killed in 1998. The vigil commemorated all the trans people lost to violence that year and began an important memorial that has become the annual Transgender Day of Remembrance. Sadly, 2021 has been the highest number of reported deaths. Violence and hate crimes have also increased to terrifying highs. Around 44 anti-trans pieces of legislation have been introduced in the past year. Some states have implemented them. If this doesn't give folks a green light to harass our trans community, it sure as hell tells them that they aren't worthy and don't belong here. States still have gay and trans panic defenses, which lets their murderers get off the hook. By coming out tonight, I hope you reject that notion. I hope you join us as we fight like hell for our literal lives and for those who can't fight anymore. I hope if you got a name tonight, that you hold that name close. These people are our community members. They could be any of us, as we know Central Oregon is prone to violence and murder. I know I panic going to the store and dress in a way that mostly disguises me so I can pass. But God forbid I talk or have to use a restroom, as they will out me. These systems are in place to out us and to other us. These systems let their murderers often get away without a single charge. We can change those systems. This fight is not just unique to the trans community. It is an intersectional fight. We know that Black trans women are the most vulnerable and victims of violent crimes. The majority of the names we will read are BIPOC folks. They are houseless. They have been rejected by family, friends, and partners. They have been fired from their jobs, denied housing, and denied basic human decency. They have been systematically othered by society. I hope you reflect in ways that feel right to you tonight and find ways to get involved. If you need help, come talk to me, or I can point you in the right direction to continue the fight outside of this vigil. We cannot afford to lose more of our community. We need more cis allies to step up and help be part of the change. Trans Awareness Week is great, but we need more than a week. People are very aware of trans folks. We're politicized. Take that awareness and turn it into direct action and change. Defend your trans community members. Do more, so instead of holding vigils, we can hold celebrations.
Thank you, Kay. And again, I just want to honor the weight of the emotional journey that you're giving us, the viewpoint of giving us, sharing and giving us an insight into. We appreciate it. I'm going to slide in here and also talk a little bit about what also happened over the weekend, which was the verdict for the Rittenhouse verdict. I know that caused a lot of upheaval, and I'm not going to say much on it simply because I believe that we have community members who have really valuable thoughts, and I'm hoping to hear from some of those individuals. But I know that there is a direct, correlation between how safe people feel to be protesters in a situation where they feel like, or where there is people getting away with, literal murder. And where is that accountability? And when you can see, white supremacy groups rising up with greater boldness, turning Rittenhouse into a hero, I think that there is a certain level of panic that is there. But from the conversations I've had so far about what does this mean for Central Oregon, and what I would community members want to see is a recommitment to accountability, and also that we need to examine, the policies that we have in place as as a governmental body, as the city. What are we doing to protect our protesters, our people's right to stand up and say, to peacefully protest and to make their voices heard? In what ways are we making sure that they're being kept safe, and that there is the ability to be Americans without fear? And so I think this is a huge deal. I think it's only the beginning of a conversation, and for that, I'm thankful. My heart is obviously very heavy. I haven't finished processing personally everything that I feel on this subject. I'm not surprised. So in many ways, it just feels like do what you need to get to the next day. But I also feel like a sense of urgency around the preparation to learn our lessons that need to be gathered from here, to take the warnings as we've been given them, and to do whatever we need to do to work doubly hard to make sure that our community feels safe and that there is no correlation between us. So I feel like there's going to be, this again is just the beginning of that conversation, and I hope that from this we spin ATRAC's work begins to be spun in really positive directions that have direct that show our community direct action around this subject. Okay, I want to keep us moving forward. And at this time, I would like to welcome our newest Human Rights and Equity Commissioner. I'm just so happy, actually, about this individual. Any interaction with her has been really positive, where you feel and leave with all of this positive feeling. And I'm just so impressed with this youth and their passion for this type of work, and so excited to have their voice elevated to the place of the Human Rights and Equity Commission, and be incorporated into the work that we're doing from a youth perspective. But I don't want to keep always re-saying someone's youthfulness, but I think it's obviously really, really important. So Delaney, sorry, and I'm going to say Delaney Skews is a junior over at Summit High. And I was, as many of you know, I was welcomed by the mayor to participate in the interview process. And Delaney's passion, her positivity, her intensity, which I appreciated so much, comes right across in the equity work. And we're just so excited to have them join. So at this time, I'm just going to quit talking, let Delaney take a moment to introduce yourself to the Human Rights and Equity Commission. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm Delaney Skuse. Like Jasmine said, I'm a junior at Summit High School. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm so excited to be here and now be a commissioner. I was an alternate for I think the past 6 months, I would say. So I'm really excited to now be a commissioner and get to meet all of you guys and be and help with the amazing work that you guys have been doing. So thank you again for this opportunity.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome.
Yay.
A fresh body, a fresh person. I'm excited. Okay, so let's go ahead and approve those minutes from 10/27/21. To approve, can I get a motion of the meeting minutes?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes.
I'm so sorry, I lost connection there. Have the meeting minutes been reflected with the change, Anna, that I emailed you about?
Yes, so I'm happy to maybe talk about that just for a brief second. And I think that some good conversation has been elevated about that. Is that okay, Chair?
Yes, it is okay.
Okay, so Jody raised a really good question last week about the difference between an excused absence or an actual absence. And so and that was raised by another commission member as well. And with kind of, I think, opposite feelings that we shouldn't have there be a difference because no one should be, I guess folks are not asking to be excused from staff. They decide that for themselves. And so I think this is something that can be further outlined in the governance and guidelines subcommittee to really have intentional language for this group to adopt the language and the verbiage that you all want to use to reflect those. So is that what you're talking about, Jody?
Yeah, I gave sufficient notice that I wouldn't be present, and that was happened with other commissioners. So it caught my attention that I was listed as absent when I gave proper notice. So I don't approve the minutes if it says that I'm absent.
And so I believe we can make a motion to amend that piece of it. Jasmine, if you want to lead the group through that, or if Jody would, I believe, and legal feel free to weigh in here, but I believe, Jody, you can make a motion to create that change within the meeting minutes to reflect that.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion. I gave sufficient notice to the chair and the co-chair and yourself that I wasn't going to be present at the October meeting, so I have issue with it being listed as absent.
What's the alternative?
An excused absence would be
excused. Okay.
Yeah, with notice to staff. So Jody did give sufficient notice that he would not be able to make that meeting.
Yeah, I went back and looked at previous minutes, and that was the first time that appeared, so it caught my attention.
I think that we can, in essence, we can re-examine this, but right now what we're being handed is just city code, right? City practice, is that correct?
So currently, without the group having your own guidelines and governing documents adopted and approved by the group is currently operating, and Mary, feel free to jump in, under city council practice. And so that there's no real definitive difference other than many groups often have things in place. Like if you miss three meetings without any sort of notification, then maybe there is like a group of folks that reaches out to you to support you to see how we can adjust so that you can continue to participate versus reaching out with sufficient notice to let staff and participants know that you won't be able to make it. And Mary, you're looking
yeah,
like
this is Mary. Yeah, Anna's correct. There's nothing in your rules, and there's really nothing in the general council code that talks about excused versus unexcused absences. Anna's correct. Some bylaws will say X number of unexcused absences and a person can be removed. The council's charter actually has some language for council members about unexcused absences. But Jody's also correct that it's really common that just as a courtesy, if you notify that you're going to be absent and you may give your reasons why, that's commonly done, and it is commonly called an excused absence when you tell the chair and staff that you'll be missing, and there's a reason, because usually if you're picked for a committee or commission, you're expected to attend unless there's a good reason why you can't. So it's really a normal courtesy that I think Jody said that he wouldn't be there. So that would be called an excused absence.
So Mary, just for logistical purposes, can Jody make a motion to amend the meeting minutes to reflect that and ask the group to approve the meetings with that amendment?
Yeah, it's just a motion, a second, and a simple vote. Yep.
I would like to motion to have it changed to excused absence because I gave sufficient notice.
And I'll second that.
Yeah, sure, second.
Okay, sorry, I lost my place. Do we need to, then now we can vote on it or vote to have the minutes approved? Or is it two separate votes or is it the same one?
Two separate votes. So first to vote on the amendment.
Okay, can we please, all in favor of it, show your favor? Yay,
Yeah,
raise your hand. Okay, anyone not in favor? This will be important. Please let us know if you're not in favor of this. Okay, motion approved. And now with that decision to have it changed, can we approve the minutes from 10:27?
I have a question. Was there a correction made to Commissioner Tran's name, spelling of her name? Yes, their name was fixed. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, there was. Okay, so everybody who votes to approve, say yay.
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 Everybody who disapproves, say nay. Okay, motion carries, or notes approved.
Oh, is your hand up for?
Yeah, my hand's up. Hi,
comment?
Jasmine.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're all good. We're
Go
just
right
tiny
ahead.
dots on a screen in the universe. It's fine. Okay, I'm just gonna step out here and I just reviewed the agenda and I don't see any spot for this human moment. So I'm just gonna put it here. Do you want me to wait to bring up something that I'm noticing for the group to give feedback till the end, or do you want me to say it now?
I think you can
I
say it
can't
right.
hear you. Okay. I think one thing that's coming up for me just real quick is what I'm noticing about Robert and his rules of order is that it's really good at being a wrench in the process, because I mean, Jody, I appreciate they're like, hey, I did the thing. And then Mary's like, yeah, common courtesy. And we're all like, yeah, cool. But at the end of the day, like that took like 10 minutes. And I'm just thinking about like what it would be like to do things differently. And so I just want to put it out there that whoever, like in that big document we're changing, it would be really, it would be a paradigm shift to get rid of this narrative that we're all having to be in. And I know some of us are really comfortable with it because of previous experience, but to me, it's completely unnatural and just not it sort of gets in the way of connection and being, I think it's like efficient to the extreme that it's actually inefficient for me. I just want to say that it would be really interesting to sort of look at deconstructing using this system as a way to be in a group together.
And I think that's super fair. I guess my response to that would simply be that we have the ability to do that in our governance and guidelines committee. And so I think that will be noted. And I think that, I mean, I think it's already been noted, but like, let's go ahead and highlight and prioritize that conversation.
And I know it's huge and we have a lot of time, And that's probably a really big goal, but I just want to put that in. Whoever's taking notes out there in the ether, just put an asterisk next to that. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah.
Mitchell, appreciate that input. Anna, I would like you to respond. It looks like you have something to say, so I'm gonna let you respond, and I'm gonna also have you transition right into your director's update for us.
Great. I hear you, Mo, and I think I definitely in my one-on-ones with some folks have had exactly the same conversation. And in fact, Mary and I sat on the phone for about a collective hour today talking exactly about this. So I think I just want to elevate that as like, yes, hear you. And staff, Mary and I had a conversation today about what can we do differently. I think that's like the charge of this group, right? And so I appreciate you elevating that. And I think what I'm also hearing is a future agenda item for our governance and guidelines subcommittee group. So before I continue with that, Olivia, yes, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm tracking. So when we say this, are we talking about getting rid of like the motioning and the seconding and the voting and like all that bullshit?
Talking about everything that is involved in Robert's rules, which yes, is in fact the way that the process of approval, how we do everything, how we is all currently being ran by Robert's rules.
Cool. Got it. Love it. Add it.
Okay, great. So I'll try and be brief, but I also want to recognize that, like, I think, you know, like a staff report is an opportunity for us, me as your staff member, to be transparent about what I'm working on internally at the city as well, and ask for your support, or really identify the areas that you all want to engage in my work moving forward when it comes to internally what I'm doing at the city is. So kind of like an accountability checks and balance piece as well. So just putting that out there, and I'll try to keep it as succinct as possible. First, I want to acknowledge today is the first day that our accessibility and equity manager has started, Sharisa Aldridge. And so Sharisa, I'll just ask you to maybe unmute. We're really excited to have Sharisa start today virtually, but I just wanted to put a face to the name and create an opportunity for Sharisa to introduce herself.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? All right, perfect. So my name is Sharisa Aldridge. I use she, her pronouns. I am currently in Salt Lake City, but very much looking forward to the move to Bend. I'll be in person starting on the 6th. My background, I'm a person with a disability, and I've spent the last several years at the Utah Transit Authority, ensuring that our services and programs are accessible for people with disabilities. My title is ADA Compliance Officer, but I see that as kind of compliance as the floor, right? There's a lot more that you can do to elevate beyond that, and that's a lot of what my work has focused on. So very excited to bring that to the work that I'll be doing with the City of Bend as part of the DEIA team. And working with Anna and other members of the disability community to make sure that the beauty of Bend is accessible for everybody.
Thank you, Sharisa. I think there'll be future opportunity maybe to have a deeper dive into the work that Sharisa will be working on and how it connects with our HREC goals and priorities. But I want to move on to the second update, which is to really elevate the work of Xavier Borja in communications. He is our new equity manager in, I believe, I'm unsure of his official title, but I'm pretty sure it's equity manager in our communications department. Really excited. Xavi started a week after me. Many of you know him, I think. And Xavi is really focused on equity work and how it relates to community partnerships in particular. And so Xavi right now, part of his work, or one of his first initiatives, he is to identify barriers to community members, or for community members to accessing information from the city, and that can and also providing input opportunities to provide input and feedback within city government. This could be examples of, you know, we're doing a construction project, we're looking at putting in an air traffic control tower. It can really just be, I think, work around how do I get information on how to pay my utility bill, or is there kind of a relief around me if I'm going through a hardship right now and I can pay that later. So really looking at how folks receive information, how they want to receive information in the future. Do they access council meetings? Do they want to do that? Is that an area where they would get their information? And what are the areas that we can be better? And there is a large focus on the Spanish speaking community in Bend. And so we wanted to carve out an agenda item for him, but I think tonight is such a packed agenda, especially with planning for next week's briefing to the council. What we really, I said I would bring it up in the kind of staff report, and we could have him maybe attend a future meeting. And I also would put out there opportunity for a subset of groups, if there are members who say, like, this is really important to me and I would like to continue in this conversation and participate in some deeper feedback opportunities. I would love to have you reach out to myself and to Zavi. I'm really excited about the work that he's doing and want to support this effort because I think it's critical. And even looking at what kind of questions do we ask community? Is the community conducted in Spanish and translated to English? Maybe I'm the one wearing the headset, right? Looking at even how we do that. What are the questions we're asking? Are we backing up far enough with these questions that we're asking? Is it look like a survey? Is it listening sessions? And again, that goal is to really elevate community voice and decision-making. But the only way to do that really is to start with, how do you receive your information? Do you know what the city does? Is this of interest to you? How should we be changing? How should we be putting communications out? What should automatically be translated and into what languages? So really looking at kind of doing an assessment of the lay of the land right now as we operate, and what can those changes be? Zavi, you're on here, but so I don't know, would you like me to turn it over for you, or Jasmine, is there time for Zavi to just jump in really quick?
Yeah, and remind me, you have another point too, right?
Yes, one more.
Some more, okay. Yes, go ahead, Zavi.
I don't have much to say. I'm excited to explain to you, or kind of give a presentation of a breakdown of what I'm kind of putting together at the next meeting, hopefully. Anna explained that really well. The only thing that I would mention is that my title, I guess, is Community Relations Manager with an emphasis on equity and partnerships. That's the only thing so that's like my specificity. Within this, we already have a community relations manager in Michaela that focuses on the neighborhood folks. And so we'll have a lot of overlap within, again, how we are, what is the access and or lack of access to government and mitigating those barriers. So I'm excited to share with y'all and have y'all be a part of that process as well. As I do doing the two groups within like Spanish speaking communities and then underrepresented at large, and explain kind of what that means and what that looks like. So thank you.
Thank you, Zavi. And so if there is, if folks would like more information, I can put together maybe a memo with contact information, or you can reach out to me directly and I can coordinate kind of a future deeper dive into this. It's early in the process, and I think we just wanted to include you early on as we're shaping what this even looks like. Thank you, Zavi. I really appreciate you and your work. So just last one, in terms of what we're working on internally, immediately the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility Internal Task Force is putting together a lunch and learn opportunity around the holidays. So continuing the conversation about what other cultural holidays are out there, and what does things like Thanksgiving and Christmas mean for other cultural communities. And so that will happen likely in December. I think today we just had several meetings about planning for what that topic looks like. So I wanted to just let you all know, kind of give you an update of what's going on internally. And then I'm hopeful that my draft action plan for my department will be done in early January or in late December or mid-December. So hopefully before the December meeting, and maybe I can use that time to present it all to you, or we can have that be an agenda item, because I would love your feedback in the action plan for my department. And then that is it. Thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you, Anna. Okay, and I just want to highlight the fact that, as you guys can see on the agenda, it moved from staff updates to director update. And so if you guys are familiar with boards, in essence, we're the board and Anna is, the executive director, and is letting us know on what progress is always being made in-house. And then as we see that action plan, we'll be able to keep her and her department accountable to the work that they want to accomplish. And so I just want to make sure we're really understanding how this is altered, switching from staff updates to director update. and how we're going to always use this time on every agenda moving forward to hear from Anna and potentially other connecting other connecting city employees who fall under this work. Okay. Okay, so right now I'm going to offer up, we have a presentation coming from Rachel Baker, who is the Affordable Housing Coordinator. And they're going to be presenting on an affordable housing assessment. And we are going to be giving feedback on this. So I believe it's a short presentation. And then please kind of be noting, commissioners, the thoughts that you would like to share with the Affordable Housing Coordinator. All right, so without further ado, is it Raquel or Rachel? I'm sorry.
It's Rachel.
All right, thanks, Rachel. Go right ahead.
Yep. And let me share my screen.
And is this like a WIP working deck that we're providing feedback in order to have edits incorporated? Or is this just like, we like it, we don't like it?
This is actually something a little different than what was presented. It is, I'm going to talk to you all about the housing program a little bit, give you a little introduction, and then my ask will be if some of you are willing to give some of your time to have a more intimate discussion, and then I will bring back to you a draft of the assessment of fair housing, which is what I'm working on. So does everyone understand that? I just want to make sure. Let me get you all in front of me again.
Yeah, thank you.
And before I get started, I also wanted to introduce my colleague, Amy Fraley. She is the Affordable Housing Coordinator, and I am the Affordable Housing Manager. And we are newly to a department, a housing department, which previously has not existed in the city of Bend until recently. Once upon a time, there was just one individual running the affordable housing program for the city of Bend under the Economic Development Department. And now we are growing into our own department. So that is all a result of Bend doubling its population from 1990 to 2000, while cities nationwide grappled with the effects of eliminating federal housing programs in the 1980s. Most of Bend's affordable housing development occurred in spite of dwindling federal resources as a result of public and private partnerships. State population estimates indicate that Bend has doubled its size again from 2000 to 2020, but without the housing production necessary for our low and moderate income community members, we are just way underproducing the affordable housing we need for our community. Fortunately, Bend is truly a leader in this area for the state of Oregon. Our affordable housing program at the city, we were the first in Oregon to implement an affordable housing fund in 2006. We recently implemented a new construction excise tax. This funding will be targeted towards AMI levels at 30% AMI or below. AMI stands for area median income. It's a HUD term, or a US housing and urban development term that just kind of pinpoints like the middle of our income in the community. We are a conduit for those community development block grants from HUD funds. It comes through our program. Other incentives that our program administers are exemptions for system development charges, expedited permitting for affordable housing development, property tax exemptions for affordable housing development, and surplusing city-owned land, all for affordable housing. Our department informs council and council-appointed committee, the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, of potential policies to address housing needs. We implement those policies enacted, and we hold the hands of our community members to utilize state and local resources and federal resources. And we really help not just with affordable housing development, but also with services. The Community Development Block Grant is not just about housing, it also provides services to our community and funds many of the services in our community, such as Thrive, Central Oregon. The overnight shelter has been funded primarily by Community Development Block Grant funds. Lots of services rely on this funding to make their programs work in our community. And it is the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee that meets monthly, provides the technical assistance to developers, and evaluates proposals for funding. What does affordability look like in Bend? Well, this is the graphic you often see. I want to make sure that I give you enough time to actually look at this graphic and develop an understanding of it, because low and moderate income community members, according to the area median income given by Housing and Urban Development, include those low income AMI levels, include incomes for nursing assistants, sales associates, hotel desk clerks, social workers. Essentially, what we've learned in the last year and a half are essential workers. And funding from HUD generally develops rental housing for households at or below 60% AMI. Those are those jobs that you see at the bottom of the screen. And then offers often household or home ownership opportunities for households at 80% AMI, which is the line one up above of that bottom line on the screen. Median home prices in Bend are $650,000, which is way out of reach for many of our community members. And so this graphic just kind of illustrates from the top down those AMI levels of annual incomes, what that means they can afford in rent, and what that means they can afford in home prices. There's lots of assumptions in creating this graphic. They're kind of in small print at the bottom right-hand corner. It's based on like 10% down payment, 3.9 interest over 30 years, mortgage, insurance, and no homeowners association fees, and that there's particular credit scores and no debt. I just want to give you guys a chance to kind of look at this screen and digest it before I move to the next slide, because it has a lot of information in it, but it really kind of illustrates how difficult it is to have a home, not just own a home, but to rent a home in Central Oregon right now.
Rachel, I see a hand up.
I think that's me. Am I allowed to ask questions or give comments now, or would you prefer to wait until the end?
No, I'd prefer now, because this is the kind of group that I think allows for that.
Just my assumption looking at this slide is that the majority of the Bend population falls into that yellow, green, and red line, or body of work. Is there a way that you can put like a percent of the population that falls in each of these tiers? Just I understand what you're trying to say, that like most people working these jobs can't afford median housing pricing, but like of the hundreds of thousands of people that live here, is it really like 90% of them can't afford the median housing price?
So
and then,
go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I want you to finish your thought.
No, that was completed there. Like I would want to see the percentage of the population that fits in each of these tiers. And
so
then
that percentage is actually what the AMI stands for. So 100% AMI is that, like, this line right in the middle is that middle point for all of our community members. However, if you think about who are we counting when we count for this data, are we actually counting everyone below that? Does that make sense?
So say, like, tell me the absolute number of people that make $80,000 in Bend.
So the
You
amount
know what I
of-
mean? Like,
Yeah.
like of the total population, what is the number of people or percentage of people that make $80,000 in Bend? And maybe I'm misreading the chart, but I think that would be helpful to add.
I hear what you're saying. And that's something that maybe we can look into adding to the chart. It's a very busy chart. But that 100% AMI is that exact median level income for, you know, everyone above is above average and everyone below is below average based on our community population. But how we create that population and how we determine that is, are we correctly capturing everyone below 100% AMI? And would that be less than that amount if we actually counted everybody?
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess with that being the baseline, I would want to know. I'm assuming more people fall below the 100% than do above it. And then in addition, my secondary point or question is, so that asterisk at the bottom right, I'm also assuming all of those constraints eliminate a lot of people, to your point, counted in this, what average, what's the A? Area?
Area
Whatever.
median income is what it stands for.
In this, yeah, in the tiering, if you were to get rid of those constraints, do you add like a 6th tier at the bottom?
Potentially. I mean, there's definitely another tier of funding. This is just how many we could fit in the screen.
Yeah, I guess I'm more asking, I don't want to forget or exclude those people that don't have 10% for a down payment, which is a shit ton of money, that, you know, don't have good credit, that do have debt, which is more realistic than the asterisk is illustrating for the average American.
And for federal funding, those people typically get funding or funded housing through rental homeowner, or not through rental opportunities, not home ownership opportunities. So
yeah, sure. I just think it's a good population for us to be aware of.
Absolutely. And the next slide might speak to that a little bit more.
Cool. Thank you.
So as you can see, vital members of our community rely on affordable housing for additional housing choice to remain in Bend. And affordable housing in Bend cannot be built without a subsidy of some sort. After the Great Recession, there was a significant amount of underproduction of affordable housing, in addition to housing in general. So in 2015, when a housing needs analysis was completed, we noticed that the housing deficit for those populations below 60% AMI that you were just referring to were so significant, it was upside down with regards to what our community needed. Consequently, Bend has a goal to meet our housing production needs. Bend lacks more than 4,700 units of housing affordable to households earning less than $25,000 per year. Many of the surplus units at 60% AMI are being occupied by households that make significantly less and therefore are house burdened. And it is essentially housing units are not available at the price points that the current market demands. So some of those
right,
funds.
Can we just go back to that one really quick?
Yep.
And someone rein me in if I'm like derailing us. How much time do we have for this topic, Jasmine?
Well, we do need to keep
Okay,
it.
never mind.
I want to make sure that we have other people weigh in because we have a couple of really important agenda points as well as public comments coming up.
Got it. Yeah, continue.
I'll keep moving. And if anyone raises their hand and I don't see you, it's because I have 3 different screens and I'm kind of focused on the screen that I'm presenting.
is that I do want to point where people can ask questions. I'm going to suggest that you finish the presentation and then people ask
good.
questions at the end.
Okay. So affordable housing funding, we wanted to give you an example of funding from our own affordable housing funds. We want to point out the leverage ratio, specifically that we awarded $1.7 million in 2020, and we leveraged that for $84 million from outside sources of our state and federal funding to produce 343 units over the next future years. This is just an example of the type of work that your Affordable Housing Advisory Committee reviews and allocates funding. Examples of things that have been constructed recently from prior years' funding include Legacy Landing, which just had a ribbon cutting ceremony, and that is, I believe, I don't have the number in front of me for some weird reason. I do have it somewhere. 47 units, in addition to Canal Commons, which also had 48 units, and 48 units next to Canal Commons are being constructed. This is also a visual of Phoenix Crossing, which is 24 units over on 15th Street. And I'm sure many of you saw the Veterans Village media 15 units for homeless veterans that is currently opening up. In addition to those rental opportunities, Bend Habitat for Humanity, Core Community Land Trust have all had multiple ribbon cuttings and homeownership opportunities in the last 6 months as well. Here is an example of the public services that were funded in 2020. And I just wanted to put an asterisk on here that much of this funding also came from the CARES Act. Typically, only a fraction of this funding is available, but these are all an example of the types of services that CDBG Public Service Funds provides. In 2020, 1,346 persons experiencing homelessness received shelter, 161 households received rental assistance, 341 elderly persons received meals, and 8 households received mortgage assistance. CDBG's funding operated through the City of Bend, and the City of Bend's Affordable Housing Advisory Committee benefited 3,139 community members of Bend. Here is a map of where we have built our affordable housing throughout the community, because where you build matters and where you invest matters. And we want to make sure that there's affordable housing in every neighborhood and that every neighborhood benefits from community development investments. So, I did want to go back to this and just point out that you'll see different colored dots on this map. This map is available to all of you in the city's mapping system, and all these dots represent different funding sources.
Hey, Rachel, I'm going to jump in here. We are actually running out of time. So
I'm wrapping up.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm coming to my ending. I am creating an assessment of fair housing, and that assessment is required to be done for us to continue to receive community development block grant funding. A similar process was completed for Bend in 2019, and I am asking if any of you are willing to participate in a small group discussion with me and my fellow housing staff on fair housing. I would happily send anyone that's willing a doodle poll to volunteer an hour of their time. And then I will bring the assessment back in front of all of you for review after I get some feedback from whoever has time to kind of sit with me and have a more robust discussion regarding fair housing.
Okay. And is there any burning questions that commissioners would like to ask right now?
This is, oh, it seems like there's a couple hands. I see Kay's hand up too. I was just curious. I couldn't tell if I missed it or not, but does this include like trailer houses too?
I mean,
like just-
trailer houses are a part of housing. I assume you're referring to manufactured homes?
No, not really.
RVs?
I guess both, but like, are you just thinking, you know, new construction? I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out what the difference is for this affordable housing. So yeah, I just was curious about that.
It's an assessment of fair housing, and the assessment of fair housing includes all types of housing. So it's really just kind of assessing particularly protected classes access to housing, in addition to, you know, our underserved populations access to all things around housing. So housing is not just about where you live, it's about the community that you live in, accessible walkways, accessible schools, accessible, you know, communities and neighborhoods, not just about the home.
But would this also, I guess, help decide what kind of houses will be built and how the space is going to get used?
So that's more of a
graph,
housing.
like, people don't make that much money. So like, are we going to try to use that space better?
I mean, that certainly is an aspect of the assessment.
Okay. I know there's more questions, so I'll just leave it at that.
Commissioner Mitchell.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say I'd be happy to sit down and talk more about this, because I think we're also going to need more than an hour with your team. Like I would say 2.
Same.
Just plan for 2,
Yeah.
and if we end quick, if we end
Yeah.
early, that's great.
Elizabeth Johnson, are you volunteering, or you have question? Either way, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. No, I was just volunteering to say if you'd like to reach out to me, Rachel, I'm happy to also have more discussion with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Kay, go ahead, jump in.
No, likewise. I'll save my questions for when that happens. I'd love to volunteer.
Okay, so it looks like we have Kay, Elizabeth, and Commissioner Mitchell who are ready to go.
Me too. Me too.
Sherry?
Yeah. Yes.
Perfect. So we have 4 commissioners. And this is, this can be an open-ended question, but what I'd be very interested in hearing about, and I'm not going to be a part of the, you know, the volunteers, but commissioners, when you head over there, I'd be interested in hearing about how accountable the city is making the affordable house, the projects they're accepting. Like, do we know for sure that they're practicing fair and are not, you know, discriminating in any way? How equitable are their processes? The individuals who are being partnered with to actually build these homes. So, is there anything else before I move on?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Exciting stuff. Okay, so at this time, it looks like it's time for public comment. So I will let Kayla take over.
All right. At the moment, it looks like we do not have any callers. If you are on the line and you would like to speak with the commission, please raise your hand. Oh, and it looks like one popped up. Kenny Adams, I've given you the ability to unmute yourself. You can go ahead and speak.
Good evening, HREC. I'm sorry I've missed the last couple of meetings, but I did want to contribute. I am very interested and excited for the work that you guys are going to be doing. But I do want to make a comment about something that I do know that has been planned for a while and has been talked about, and I want to reinforce that. I know that the HREC has the ability, or is at least working toward an oversight committee, or when it comes to policing in Bend. And I really think that that is something that is very important that we really just lean into, because with what Jasmine brought up at the very beginning of the meeting with Kenosha, and then what we're seeing, we have so many court cases that are happening around the country right now, and we have one that's going to be happening here as well. And we need to send a message that vigilantism, and we need to send a message that policing is going to be equitable, and not just equitable. The E in HREC also need to stand for empathy. So what we really need to focus on is making sure that I know that Chief Krantz is working on his the one that he's building, but we have to make sure that when we have someone that is watching what the police are doing, that they're not just doing it themselves, because then we start working into bias, because we have bias in our judicial system, bias in our policing, bias in our government, whether it's city, county, state, or federal. And that's what the whole purpose of this group is for, is to be able to make sure that that doesn't happen, that the bias doesn't continue to perpetuate. So I really implore for you to continue to work toward making that happen. Thank you.
It looks like we had another call or a hand raised. Luke Rector. Luke, I've given you the ability to unmute yourself. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Luke Richter. I'm the president of the Central Oregon Peacekeepers. I appreciate the Human Rights and Equity Commission and the new director of equity for the city. Welcome. I hope you enjoy Bend as much as the rest of us do. I just wanted to, like Kenny, voice my support for the HREC in forming an oversight committee for the police. What happened in Wisconsin with Jacob Blake is absolutely disgusting. And we all know that that's not just one incident. There's a long list of incidents of police harming BIPOC and just harming marginalized communities in general. And their Chief Krantz is heading in the right direction with what he has planned. It's clear that his intentions are in the right area, but I think it is vitally important that this commission 100% dive into what he's doing, and he needs to be bouncing every single idea off of y'all. Y'all are supposed to be the voice for a lot of us marginalized people. Y'all are hopefully going to be pushing a lot of the things that the community wants to see, especially the marginalized communities. And there is no way that Chief Krantz can be handling something like this unchecked. And I really hope that the city allows you to 100% dive in with him to make this possible. And if not, then it needs to be challenged as hard as possible from you all. And I 100% expect that to happen just based off of the work that you've already been willing to do. So thank you very much for the time.
All right, Madam Chair, there are no more callers.
Okay, well, I want to thank community members for calling in. We wanted the public, HREC is wanting the public comments time to be an opportunity for us to listen and also to check into what really the most important part of our job, which is hearing the community and then figuring out how action can go behind that. And as far as the main topic, the main topic of being a part of what the police are doing, as far as what the Bend Police Department are doing as it pertains to their equity plan. I think that falls directly within our purview. And I know it's definitely been discussed between myself and the director. And of course, I know it's been discussed in our communications team. I think I want to just mention that our incidents of Barry Washington and our statement, Barry Washington Jr. and our statement to be accountable to the public and to help the city be accountable to the public. This also falls directly under that. We need stats from the police department. We need to better understand what the experience of our BIPOC and other underrepresented community members are having with the police. And so I'm excited that this is being elevated. Anyone else, any other commissioners want to speak? Please be mindful that we do need to keep moving forward, but if they would like to speak at this moment, I'd like to let you.
Yeah, just on that, I just want to make sure that we are actually being asked to be involved there. I hadn't heard of anyone in this commission being asked to like volunteer their time for that, but I think
we have not been
guess Anna.
We have not been asked. I didn't want to say that we have been asked. It just falls beneath what we can demand, I believe.
Great. Yeah, then I would like to demand our involvement if Anna, you're not already involved.
I will absolutely follow up after this conversation, I think, with Chief Krantz, and communicate with you all about next steps on this for sure.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you very much. Okay, headed back to the agenda, taking a look. We have updates from our subcommittee, and I'm just gonna take a look at our time here. We will be spending the rest of our time after these updates. So that means an update from our governance and guidelines committee, and then an update from our communications committee. And then we really need to transition into talking about planning for our December 1st presentation to council. So I'm gonna just go ahead and put 5-minute time on you guys, with like 5 minutes for questions and interactions from the commissioners. Does that sound like that would work? I'm asking Olivia, I'm asking.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. I put my thumb in the air. You couldn't see it
Okay,
because it gets blurry over here.
Okay, well, go ahead, you're up.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Olivia.
Yeah, I guess our biggest updates are two things. One, we wrapped up edits to the conduct section of our guidelines document, and that will be socialized with the governance group, and then eventually this commission, probably in our next session. And then we started to talk about the digital journeys that the public need to go on to get comments, either to ourselves or to our commission via email, via phone line, via time during meetings. And that's kickstarted a conversation with a specific project manager, web designer with the communications team on actually upping the accessibility and the publicity of our HREC site on the Bend website.
Yeah, I'm honestly pretty excited about this aspect of what is happening. So just to recap, basically we're really examining how accessible and how what the journey of a community member is when they want to interact with the Human Rights and Equity Commission, and also how they're understanding. I wanted, if there's nothing left to say, Olivia.
Well, I just wanted to bring up one point. In our last communications meeting, Shireen, you gave a really, I believe it was you, Shireen, you gave that totally good piece of feedback in your work. Will you speak to the example that you encourage all of us to look at, and hopefully we can just model that?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I brought up an example from the United Nations Human Rights Council sort of feedback mechanism, and how they request populations to give feedback or sort of voice their complaints. And it was just in the form of a website, and the website is very user friendly, and I could definitely send you guys the link to that through either Anna or Jasmine. And it just basically explained the whole mechanism through which you can provide your feedback. And it was just as easy as pressing a button, writing, your comment and sending it. And basically this going to the council for their review and adjudication, basically. So I could definitely send it to you guys.
It was a really exciting example, and I think it'll be a really great baseline to work off of, and to work with our communications department and figure out what is feasible. But I it was awesome to kind of just see that modeled. Is there anything else communications that you'd like to bring forward? Okay, so then we have governance and guidelines subcommittee, and I am going to, since Commissioner Crowe is not here, I would like another commissioner to give the update on what was dealt with last. Anna, does there feel like there needs to be a new update since the last one, considering our last meeting, or what are your thoughts?
I really feel like this is a decision of the group if we want to talk about. I mean, I'm happy to also provide, if folks would like me to talk about the scheduling and moving forward. And I know some folks have filled out the doodle poll that I sent out, and I really appreciate that. So I'm hoping tomorrow that I can finalize a date moving forward. But if there is any conversation, I do think since then that there has been a few things raised, maybe more offline, but that align with guidelines and procedures. And so I did see Kay, you raised a hand, but then you put it back down. So totally, if you want to jump in and just provide maybe your input here, I would greatly appreciate it. And I'm happy to respond, or if folks have questions, I can absolutely jump in.
Just a quick thought. I don't think I got that doodle poll if you just sent that recently.
I sent it after the last meeting, but I will look and send it to you this evening. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't get it. Yeah, I didn't have much of an update on that just because it got cut short because we didn't have quorum. And I know we were bouncing around the idea of having a second co-chair. And that's what I have in my notes before it had to be shut down.
Yes. So I think there's some different things that are being talked, and I think the Robert's Rules discussion also falls under governance and guidelines. In essence, it's stalled right now. However, we're going to need to talk about where we're at when we do our presentation, I believe. So it's stalled, but it has has the capacity to move forward. I will say this, that if we do have a commissioner who feels they have more bandwidth, this is a subcommittee that we could have more strength on. I think that we've actually taken some losses from this subcommittee. So if there's anyone who is willing to step up, that would be super helpful. Elizabeth, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, kind of along the lines of bandwidth, it was going to be one of the questions that I had really quickly. Is initially back in July, we had all kind of been, that was like the one meeting where we could have all together. It was also proposed, I think by you, Jasmine, that there was also an advising work group that several of us had agreed to participate with. And I know we haven't met, and I haven't been able to confirm that that is still something we are going to be meeting on or not.
Ultimately, it doesn't, I believe it was proposed by me, but maybe was proposed by Jody. I'm not exactly sure as far as how that went. But I do know that what ended up happening is because they needed to be public meetings, we didn't have the ability to really push that one off. So a suggestion would be that individuals on the leadership, whatever that working group, moved over and became part of the governance and guidelines. And I would love to see, after governance and guidelines closes, to push that over the finish line, because it's not even like work hasn't been done. We're sitting there with a working document.
Right, and that's kind of
over the finish line, and then starting our action. It could become the action. Those individuals could become the action plan committee, which ultimately was going to be contributed to by this leadership working group.
Okay.
Does that kind of make sense? That's how I remembered it, and I could be wrong, but that's kind of how I remembered it, and why it didn't really go anywhere is because we would need to have them staffed, and they'd have to be public meetings and so on and so forth.
Right. And I thought that was why we created that as a work group, was because it would not have to be staffed the same as the subcommittees.
We did, but technically, I mean, unless I'm not understanding, we need you guys to create the action plan, which then makes you a decision. We were playing around with this idea of you not making any decisions and supporting leadership. But I just don't know if it's feasible, and anybody jump in right now, but it just wasn't, this leadership working group was not well defined enough. And so it kind of has absolutely just been laying there.
Yeah, so in that, I mean, that makes sense. Thank you. So in that, I feel like because I want to base what bandwidth I have based on what I've already agreed to do. And so I had already agreed to do this leadership work group piece. And if it's not going to succeed and move forward at this time, then I have, that piece where I'm happy to jump in if there's additional support needed at the governance group. So I'm happy to sort of help out where I can there.
Thank you so much. I think that would be super helpful if I could offer that up as a suggestion of maybe we can revisit the leadership working group / subcommittee in the future, but we actually have we've been commissioned by City Council to create an action plan. So this is something that we really need to see moving forward. So I would love if people felt that they could, if they would transfer to that subcommittee for now. Jody, besides you, I don't know who else was on there. Is there a list? Anna, do you have a list so we can maybe see where
Jose was, but Jose isn't here anymore.
Yes, of course. And
Jody,
Jody,
I can pull it up if you'd like me to read, but Jody, you are unmuted. Go for it. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Nope. I remember, like Elizabeth, and I agree with Elizabeth that if that committee or work group, sorry, I'm getting confused by the nomenclature like everyone else. It doesn't, if I'm not going to be utilized in that fashion, I'd be happy to join the governance and group. So feel free to put me on there. Yeah, happy to do it.
awesome. What other individuals were on in that working group?
I have it down as Jody, myself, Jasmine K, Olivia, and Jose.
Well, Kay and Olivia are already
in
on
the governance
it.
committee.
Sounds like it's all moved over to governance.
Yeah.
So we're good.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I was like trying to pull it up, and then as soon as I pulled it up, you did it perfectly. Thank you.
So can we get a resend of that doodle to all of our new and improved governance and guidelines subcommittee, and we'll find when our next meeting will be and move forward with that. It looks like that's where we're at. Thank you so much for being willing to step up.
And if I may, Commissioner Mitchell is kind of in my back ear right now, and I knew she would like that, so I just had to get that out there. If there's any background information you can give us so we don't hold you back and instead propel forward, that would be great, because I wouldn't want to step back and make you go backwards. I'm sure Elizabeth probably shares that. I would want to propel forward, not go backwards. Thanks.
Yeah, Anna, are you able to share the working doc that we have going when you send that doodle poll?
Absolutely. So I can kind of pull together the documents that exist right now and maybe the meeting minutes from previous meetings, if that's helpful to Jody. So I'll kind of package up some information for you.
That'd be so great.
Cool.
That'd be so great. I just want to be a active member with it and not pull it back.
Love it.
And Jody and Elizabeth, the way this process works too is that in order for us to be, in compliance with the rules, when you receive the working document and you have thoughts or additions that you would like to have, you send that to Anna, and Anna organizes that and is presenting that to the meeting or to the group. So that's how that workflow works. And other than that, I think you're pretty much set up for success.
Excellent.
Thank you, Jody, and thank you, Elizabeth. Okay. So let's transition. We have about 25 minutes to talk about our presentation on the 2nd. I guess I really want this to be a discussion where Anna is really kind of taking notes on what commissioners would like to see this presentation look like. And then I believe Megan or Counselor Perkins, would you mind giving us like a 2 minutes explanation of what City Council would like to see? And then we'll go into discussion about what commissioners would like to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that the new Environment and Climate Committee did as well, especially with new committees, just the idea and commissions, the idea of, you know, I'm here and Rita is here, but oftentimes, you know, the rest of the council doesn't know what's going on with HREC. You know, we talk about a little bit in our council reports, but you know, I think that the council is just really interested in, you know, what would you be, what are you focusing on? What have you done so far? And also, you know, there's a lot of curiosity about sort of which council goals that you are kind of working towards, you know, tackling on HREC. So there's no real like expectations at all. It's just really an update and to kind of see what direction you might be heading in and what you've done so far, which is a lot.
Okay, so ultimately, I'm just gonna launch us in here. And then again, this is a free form conversation with Anna, taking notes and listening to input from the commissioners. Ultimately, we obviously need a summary of our 2 deliverables, which would be the communication strategy and the governance and guidelines. And then also we need to talk about at least the components I would think of our action plan. And in that, I think we can also we can show the council a prioritization of what council goals we're tackling and what we're prioritizing. So that's how I see it. I also want to see, and at least us really communicating our identity to the council, even though, yes, we've been given, you know, this parameters, we also need to kind of say we've come together. This is how we see ourselves. I think it's healthy for us each as the commissioners here on this commission to also have the same language in which we explain who we are and what we're doing. So I would love to see that like cemented by the time we're presenting to City Council, and that we're communicating in solidarity who we are, our identity. Okay, so that's my thoughts. Anyone else? Jody.
Thank you. I was just reflecting as I'm listening. I think this is, if I remember correctly, it's our first time having a formal presentation to the city. So I think it's always important, and you don't have to use this framework, but it's what popped into my head as I was listening. I like the framework of where have we been, where are we right now, and where are we going? It honors the past that got us here. And again, we wouldn't be here if it weren't for the past folks who really did that. So I think it's good to at least say where we've been as a commission and where we came from. Where are we right now? So what's happening? And to your point, Jasmine, I think it's a really great opportunity to share some of the things that we've put in place right now, but rather where are we going? And I think it's a nice way to communicate to the council and or the community that listens in kind of our plans around that. And it's just a nice little framework that popped into my head as I was listening. So I just offer that as a suggestion.
Thank you, Jody. Commissioner Mitchell, you're up.
Hello, Chairwoman. My first thought is acknowledging sort of just like the ethos of and making explicit, like our job is to make them a little uncomfortable, right? Like, because this work is uncomfortable, right? Like we've all had uncomfortable moments in this room that we're in, and we'll continue to do so. And I think it's going to be really important for a council to be uncomfortable, and some sort of acknowledge around like that's not like it's not an intention, it's sort of just like an expectation almost, and that it's learning how to work with that, and that if they are feeling uncomfortable, that's a good sign. That means that we're doing the work that we've been asked to do. Uncomfortable doesn't mean unsafe, it just means deconstructing things. So something around that, something.
I like that. I'm gonna pop in again. I might have to start calling you guys out individually, but I had another thought that both Jody and Commissioner Mitchell's comments triggered for me, and it was thinking, or is that the right word? Well, brought up for me was that when we're talking about where we've been, I would love to bring in even the chaos that this commission kind of brought in to each of our lives, and a lot of the upheaval that was caused, and kind of so that there's like a full picture for city council of what this has been like. Also, I felt like with Commissioner Mitchell's comments, it made me think I would love to really verbalize how much it costs us to sit here and do this work. The emotional toll and the effort and the willingness to be vulnerable and what it takes to do this and to be here and to represent, and the pressure of representing, whoever you happen to be representing as you sit here. I feel like it's important that this is volunteer work. It's important to express and to make sure that that the council understands the colossal effort, both emotional and every other way that is upon our shoulders. And I also want to make sure that council's understanding how incredibly visible HTRAC is, and how we're kind of left in a vulnerable position with the community, where we're the people that likely are going to be contacted with anything chaotic that happens, and that we really need to be consulted, and we need to be able to be a part of the communications back out to the community, considering we'll be the ones who are receiving communications in from the community many times, if that makes sense. So we need to be a part of that process. Otherwise it's not, I know obviously city council has public comments and everything too, but so do we. Therefore, we need to be a part of what is coming out, what communications are going out. Okay. And not always playing, I guess, behind. All right, Sherry, you are up.
Yeah, I really appreciate what Mo and Jody said. It made me think of what our callers were saying, making it uncomfortable for the city councils, like just listening to our chief of police, talk about their training they're going to do, and yet we haven't even heard about it. Like, how come we weren't asked for it to be part of that? And so maybe, again, the expectations, why weren't we invited for that? At least to understand, what their call to actions are. Again, having another set of lens, which is what we are here for. And then maybe providing them with what their steps are to get us involved. That way there's a clear, transparent roadmap on how we can be involved and create movement. So I think that's all, because it seemed like Jody and Mo said most of the things. But yeah, that's my input.
Thank you, Commissioner Juan. Okay, anyone else? Shireen, looking at you, what are your thoughts?
Hello. So I think one of the things that we might want to highlight is that we're trying to build relationships with our community. We're trying to reach out. We're trying to be sort of to bring to the table the things that they want us to discuss. I'm a little bit concerned about the fact that public comment is sort of dwindling a bit. And I just want to make sure that we put the message out there that we really want to reach out, and we want to strengthen that relationship, and we want to hear more from the community, and we want to go out there and do lots of outreach. So this is one of the things that I think we should highlight that we really want to do.
That's great. I'm just gonna highlight what Shireen said by saying we need to talk about kind of when we get to a certain place that we would like to relaunch and reintroduce ourselves, and become, at that point when we have our act together, become more visible, because a huge part of equity is making sure that the community actually has access to us.
Absolutely. I think that was very well put, Jasmine.
Okay, who hasn't shared yet? Delaney, I'm gonna pick on you a little bit. When you think about this presentation in front of City Council, what is it that I know you're new, but what is it that you think is really important that's communicated to them?
Yeah, I think what Jody was saying, just saying like where you guys have been and then where you are now and where you want to go, I think is a really good way to communicate just what's going on, to present that to the city council. I think is a really important thing, because it presents this level of communication where you both are on the same page. I think that's something that's really important. And I think that's something that I would like to see done in that presentation for sure.
Thank you so much. Olivia?
Yeah, I'm thinking back to Mo's point about disruption, and I'd like us to go in with some concrete asks of the council, or even just questions to them. Like, I want to know what their equity budget is. I want to know what Anna's team's going to look like in 6 months, a year, 5 years. I want to know, like, if the council is putting their money where their mouth is, considering they have 13 people doing free labor right now for them.
I think that opens up a really interesting point. I maybe for the second round of feedback about the prioritization, and giving maybe in those priorities that we have some really hard asks. I feel like we should be asking directly for access to the police department. I want, what do we have to do to make them take that seriously, and it not be a suggestion, but really like a commandment from city council that we're incorporated into certain things. Like, how do we get that level of buy-in and that be a demand? So who else haven't we heard from? Elizabeth.
Hi, hey, thanks again. Kind of along the lines of what you were just saying, Jasmine, around how can we get them to, sort of make the commandment that we're involved in not only police business and what's happening with the Bend City Police, but I think, and it kind of ties back into what Jody was saying about the framework of where we come from, is when I think of this, I think of the allyship and action report that was written and that we started with, and some of the things that were listed in there, and how they all, this is where the city of Bend came about, wanting to, sort of enact us and put us in place. Sorry, baby's upset. But one of those things, many of those things on that list were things that are probably going to make the city uncomfortable. Things along the lines of making sure that they are allowing for us to be included. I know that in my own personal work, just with this committee, having been appointed to another group, just those interactions within that group have already been a little bit difficult. And I think if the city was involved in saying, hey, this is really how all the other committees and groups are going to interact with the HREC, I think it goes way farther beyond the police. I think that's an absolute, that the police be involved in this, but other groups and commissions and committees that are appointed with the city also need to be aware that if they're gonna do this, they need to include us and play in that rules. So, and it could be uncomfortable.
So I'm going to just re-say what you're saying, just to make sure I'm understanding. Are you saying that we really need to do a formal ask of city council to put more weight behind the HRAC advisory as we go on to interact with these other committees and these other groups. We need something that makes them take us more seriously. And if that is what you're saying, I could not agree more. And I want to make sure that Anna noted this, because I think
yes. And it is one of those things that I think I have talked to one-on-one with Anna about, is the specific point in the report from the Allyship in Action is that they don't want, the Allyship in Action report stated, what we don't want to see is for the city of Bend to make this check box that says, check, we created a Human Rights and Equity Commission. Therefore, we're equitable. That's not how this works. So there has to be something more substantial than just that.
Yes. Can we go back and make sure that we get that's presentation actually pulls directly from that Allyship in Action, all relevant pieces, since that's already been approved, and like that can be part of our evidence for this ask. Also, I would love to see us revisit the 3 objectives for why we were created, like our basic guidelines that were given. I think they're listed on our website right now. I like to revisit that. I think all this information should be gathered together. And in essence, we're reminding City Council who we are and what we were asked to do and how we need to operate. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Great stuff. Kay, go ahead.
I talked about this with Anna, and I just want to bring it to light too. It's along the same lines as everybody else, of just like in having them include us in posts that they do that are relevant to all of our identities and stuff. I know that I've been going back and forth with Anna today about just some frustrations I had, and she was super receptive. So just making that an ask to City Council that they include us in that, and acknowledging too that even in our group there's been quite a bit of strife, and just talking about that of just like that's going to happen. And then even in these spaces, people are super uncomfortable.
Thanks, Kay. I think that's super important. Jody, go ahead.
Yeah, Jasmine, thank you. You said something that when in response to Elizabeth's piece that she was sharing, I just wrote it myself a note just to share it. And, the other reason about going back and connecting the dots in terms of what we committed to through the ally and allyship in action pieces, it's also an accountability mechanism for us as well as the city to really make sure we are doing what we are have been commissioned to do, but also that the city has been held accountable. So all the more reason, and I think you're on that path well, but it's also an accountability mechanism for ourselves and the city to say, are we doing what we said we would be doing? And if not, what's the action plan to get back on track? Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Thank you. It absolutely is to keep us accountable, to make sure we're not getting off base. And then also when it gets hard and when it gets difficult and when you don't want to do this anymore, I know I've had to be reminded, like, why am I doing this? I feel like the gathering of all this information is going to really help synthesize that, our why and our mission, which we're going to probably need to fall back more often than not for as we move forward. And when it gets real sticky, because that's going to happen. It is happening, and that will happen. Commissioner Mitchell.
Hello. So I love it. It all sounds great, but how are we gonna get together and do our book report? It sounds like a big document.
Anna, refresh my memory about how long this presentation will be. I imagine we're gonna have a deck, I guess, is what I'm picturing. Can you give us some of those details?
Yes. So here's what I would offer, and I'm completely open 100% to feedback and putting together a small team to maybe meet a little bit tomorrow or the next day or early next week to talk through this. But this is not, I would just say, this is not the one and only chance that this group is going to have to really lay out the work of this group, right? I think this is really more the city council wants to hear the feedback, wants to hear feedback of these are our asks of you. This is how we're holding ourselves accountable to this work. We understand our charge, reminding this is a public, meeting, an opportunity to share with the public reminder, this is what we're charged to do. This is why we were created. To date, this is the work that we have been doing. I would just encourage the group to really think about this as like, not just a briefing to city council, but a briefing to the community on reminder of like, this is why we're here. This is what we've been doing to date. And I think a lot of this work doesn't necessarily show up right in these types of meetings publicly. I think it is the emails where, hey, you're providing really critical feedback to me that I am able to share internally with our communications team, with our council members, and really establish best practice and all of those things when it comes to elevating community priorities. And so I'm speaking to community in these types of opportunities coming before council, not necessarily just the council, but I do like the idea of coming up with very clear asks. But I think it's also just going to be really helpful for this group. So I would say 15 to 20 minutes, including council kind of comments or feedback, probably not feedback, questions likely. And so I don't anticipate like on having a ton of folks a part of that. Really, I think the group can decide maybe who is that spokesperson to come forward. Jasmine, I would imagine naturally it's you, but if this is an opportunity to share that in a way, completely up to this group. I, of course, will be there to support you all. I'm happy to draft a slide deck. I think in my mind, I'm picturing 4 to 5 slides of really going through high level. These are our priorities as a group. And I want to also acknowledge that I think this is an opportunity to maybe even kick off like, let's look at the idea of a retreat. Let's set our priorities as HREC members. What are your goals? How are they connected to council goals? What are the objectives and the deliverables and like all of that? So I have kind of a vision for that maybe in the future. But this is really more high level of remember why we're here, but really this is for community to remember as well. So I'm hoping 15 to 20 minutes, but also if you all have feedback on that time frame too, and you don't feel like that can be captured in that time, I can easily go talk to council.
Yes, I was thinking, and this is along the lines of maybe having the deck get created and then also presentation notes or something of what is going to be included. And then we can send that out, and then maybe we can do the same workflow where feedback is given through you. And then
Absolutely.
and I can discuss, the edits from the input gathered from the entire group. And yes, maybe we could have a small group of like immediate people who could help with the initial process as well. So that's my thought so far. So everybody feel like you can weigh in on this too. Commissioner Juan?
And also just how people can reach us. As we know, it's really challenging to reach out to us. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we might as well just make this moment an opportunity. Like Anna was also saying, we're speaking to the public as well. We're saying who we are to all of them as well, and where they can reach us. Thank you. Commissioner Mitchell.
Hello. Anna, just a quick little piece of feedback around the 15 to 20 minutes. I'd say for me, 15 feels a little short just because, just the Zoom experience alone, like the lag and things, and I also kind of just want to like create that culture of just sort of being in the space as HREC and sort of just holding our seat there. And 15 minutes, just my sense is that it might feel a little rushed.
What about asking for like 20 minutes and then 10 minutes for discussion, 30 minutes? I know that's, I don't know. That's me. Commissioner Mitchell's hands up, and so is Olivia's. Commissioner Olivia.
Yeah, how long is this meeting for the council?
So great question. So they typically have from 5:30 to about 7 is like the work session. So really it's more like briefings and things like that don't take a ton of action. And so that is where this would fall. And then they have like a small break whenever that is over. And then 7 o'clock, I believe, is when they start the like regular business meeting.
Yeah, just 2 thoughts there. It feels to Mo's point, it feels really irresponsible to limit the topic of equity to like 15 minutes. And it also feels strange to have it in like the non-action section of the meeting. And so I'm wondering, I was thinking this would be like a 45-minute presentation, and that even feels short. But also, can we move our presentation to like what you said, the business part of the meeting rather than like the quick little brief part of the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm a little bit worried about if we move to the business. From what I understand, maybe I don't know.
There's no vote is the thing.
Well, I'm saying the working one is less public facing, right?
So they're both very public. I would say the only thing that really moves something from the agenda, Mary is here. Thank you, Mary. I saw you come on. But there's no vote around this. They're not approving anything. They're really just wanting to hear an update. And I would also say, again, like I'm also completely like, I'm happy to schedule something further that is, you know, a more in-depth, once you all have like an action plan in place. These are our priorities, how they connect to council goals. We can totally schedule that too. And it doesn't have to like be a year from now. But Mary, go for it.
Well, yeah, the business meeting that starts at 7, as Anna said, is typically for things that are action items that council's doing and having action on. And we've had updates from committees and commissions fairly regularly over the years, and those are usually not in the business meeting. It's possible we could ask the city manager and the mayor about it. I was just trying to pull up the agenda. I do recall that there was a discussion that this next meeting is really booked. And so in the time for the work session, there's already other items on the work session. So Anna and I are going to need to talk to the city manager and the mayor and see what's on the work session. Sometimes what we do
I'm just sharing, like, this doesn't feel like just an update. This feels like tangible work that needs to be done by the council as well. So it feels, I guess I'm sharing, it feels weird for me to just have it as like a quick little update when this is something that should be probably part of their standing agenda every single meeting.
Yes, I agree. I think I in my head, I'm like, what? So when we say action, I guess what I'm saying is like, they're voting to approve, you know, the implementation of a plan, or they're voting to approve a budget amendment. And so I don't know necessarily, I mean, I think we could talk about like continued commitment as like an action item, but, and Ian, you know what, I'm about out here.
Well, I think, Olivia, when you have your action plan, that would be exactly what they would do at their regular meeting. When you have that to bring forward to them, they might approve that action plan. That would be an item that would be at the regular meeting. If you have decisions that you're asking them to make.
I mean, yeah, we just outlined a whole bunch of them. Like, how are we going to be further integrated into every single committee or whatever, every single council that's part of the city, or reporting to the city councilors? Like, I think that's a direct ask. Or what's your budget for Anna's team? I feel like that's a working conversation rather than just like an update conversation. Am I pulling like strings here?
No, it makes sense to me. I recognize, Ian, you have your hand up, but I just want to also say, like, I'm also happy, I think, moving forward to look at our January meeting with this group, or December. And I mean, I know my department's budget, and as when I bring forward my action plan for feedback from this group too, I'm happy to include that budget piece. And then I think there could be potential in the future to have this group elevate recommendations to council based off of that.
I just want to say, Olivia, I hear you, and I think what you're advocating for is systemic change. That's what you're saying. You're like, let's change the system and how it's run. So I hear you. I just want to acknowledge that.
Yeah, like, I want this group to be the deputy of the council. Like, we should be the right hand in every single decision-making instance for the city council.
I mean,
and like,
if equity is the center of all you do, then it only makes sense, frankly. But I feel like we're making this case. That's what I think we're doing. Correct me if I'm wrong, commissioners, but I feel like this is what Olivia just said is the case that we are making. And that's the most important thing that we need to communicate in this prior one. Honestly, we can't have an action plan until Anna has an action plan, and then we are working together, because those two action plans, internal and here, cannot not be together. I feel like they really have to be in order to be effective. But so that's my thought, that we're making the case that we need to be more centrally located. We need to be deputized. Ian, you're up. I don't know if I came through.
Oh, thank you. Real quick. I just want to make sure that everybody knows the work session segment of a council meeting. It's not less formal. It's definitely not less important than the business meeting. And what things that are on the work session agenda, which this is, and it's the typical place to put board and commission and committee updates. They are often where a lot of the really important work gets done to start those really big conversations that this group wants to have with the council and the community. So I just want to make sure that people don't feel slighted because this is on the work session agenda. It is by no means less important, less public facing, less of a priority than things that are on what's called the business meeting agenda or in the regular meeting. And it really is the right place for, at least in my opinion, for some of the conversations that HREC members want to start having with council to get started. So I don't want people to feel like it's being shunted to a corner, because it's not, but it's where we start a lot of the big projects, big changes, really heavy work that the city does. It almost always starts in a work session. The things that eventually require council decisions, like many of these ideas will. So I just wanted to put in my 2 cents for the importance of work session items.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Ian. So time, we're like at time. I didn't look at it for a long time. This was, to me, a really inspiring and productive meeting. The last thing for follow-up for what Olivia is saying, and I guess this would be a jab for Anna, is it possible when we're talking about those formalized asks about being more incorporated, is there some sort of way that we can at least present that, even though we're in if we're in the working session, can we still present it as a formalized ask that we want on their agenda to be discussed either then or in the next meeting? Like, how do we present that so that we know that it's being completely prioritized for them to answer this question and to meet that ask? How are we being incorporated? And how are you putting this weight behind HREC as we begin to go to all the committee meetings and sit on, fair housing and all that kind of stuff? Is that clear? Like, how do we properly receive an answer, not just like throw it out there and we all just let it be? How do we receive an answer on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's like, I can see in the future HREC say elevating the recommendation to the council, because this is a council commission, right? That says this is how we intend to elevate our recommendations for your consideration. One of those can be how we plan to ask for information. When we want data, when, like, that kind of this is the information that we're requesting. What does that process look like? And kind of what is that response going to look like as well? So it's like, if the group is a subcommittee or whatever is drafting that, it comes to me, I elevate it, I do that internally, or whatever this group feels is the right avenue and process for elevating that request, the recommendation, the wanting to go before the council again to elevate, like, this is something we want you all to vote on to approve. Even just establishing that process, I think is important. And yes, I hear you. And Olivia, I absolutely hear you too. So I can definitely include that. And I can include that in kind of like my work plan too, of working with you all to establish that. Like, what is the process? What does it look like to get the information to council?
I think ultimately we have to admit that we're putting a bunch of great things out here, but Anna's gonna have to go and, like, boots on the ground, and we have to at least give her room to do her job and kind of to push where we're asking her to push. Yes, Commissioner Mitchell.
Yeah, Jasmine, it's like you're in my mind. I was just thinking, I guess it's not lost on me that Anna, you're new to this position. You're a woman of color. Welcome to the city of Bend. And like, in a way, we're asking you to like, now go challenge that for us, right? And like, by the way, make all the slides too. Like, so that's just not
I'm here
lost.
for it.
Rules.
I'm
And
here for it.
Yeah,
It's my job.
I know. And like, I just want to name that like we're a community, and yeah, I want you to, I don't know, just be careful, I guess. And
Thank
like,
you.
know that like, I don't know. I'm not putting this in words.
We support you and we're here for you.
Yes, thank you. We support you. We're here for you. And like, thank you for taking all this information and putting it into a document. And thanks.
We are a passionate bunch, but like, we're okay. Like, if you come back and like, I asked and they said no. Like,
Yeah.
that's like, you're just the messenger. We understand that.
Thank you all.
I would like to just officialize, can we ask for 30 minutes? Can we go like push them for 30? Push them for 30? See what they say. That's what I'd like to see.
Absolutely. I hope to have an answer for you by the end of day tomorrow.
Awesome. All right, so we have agenda. The only thing we have left is agenda items, which we're just going to scrap that because we need to adjourn because we are 4 minutes over time. I want to thank you, commissioners, for your effort. I want to thank you, city staff, for being present here as well. And without further ado, I am going to bring this meeting to a close. Am I missing something official that I should be doing? No, not at all. All right. Enjoy your break and whatever way you choose to enjoy it.